They reach for strings you already burned. You feel it before anyone speaks. The room leans toward you, not because you asked, because something shifted. They used to measure you like an error, like noise. Now their eyes search for handles that no longer exist. You didn't announce the change, you let it arrive. Calm first, almost kind. Then the imbalance sets in. You notice it when they repeat themselves, when their certainty thins. You're no longer reacting. You're being watched. Not for approval, for permission. What scares them isn't what you did, it's what you stopped doing. And now, the ones who doubted are calculating exits, while pretending they still decide. You let them believe that for a moment longer you notice it. Before language, before logic, before proof, the air treats you differently. People hesitate mid-movement. They correct themselves around you. You didn't change posture, didn't raise voice, yet conversations bend, you enter, and outcomes soften. Not in your favor, in your direction. That's the difference. You catch it in timing. Replies arrive slower than they should. They reread you while pretending not to. You stand still, they reposition. Something feels off, but not wrong. Unfamiliar. Like gravity shifting. They used to test your limits. Now they test your reactions. Carefully, too carefully. You see it in their smiles. A fraction late, a fraction forced. They measure you without instruments. You sense evaluation where there was none. The room no longer relaxes. It calibrates. You say less than usual. They talk more than needed. Over-explaining, justifying, trying to secure ground. That feels unstable. You don't accuse, you observe. It's what unsettles them. They expected resistance or compliance. They prepared scripts for both. You offer neither. Your neutrality becomes disruptive. You're not defiant, not obedient. You're unreadable, and that irritates. They glance sideways, seeking confirmation, finding none. You feel it in your body, a subtle alertness, not fear, recognition. Something has shifted. Without announcement, they still act superior out of habit, but habit leaks under pressure. You notice who watches first, who mirrors last, who laughs, then stops. They sense it too, but can't name it, so they label it as tension, as mood, as coincidence. You let them, because you understand now. When power changes, it doesn't arrive loudly. It shows up as discomfort, as hesitation, as misalignment. Something feels off, because it is, and this time, it's not you. It's the system, adjusting to your presence. You don't confront it, yet you let the imbalance set, let it mature. Because once they feel it, they can't unfeel it. And once you notice, you can't pretend anymore. This is the beginning, not of conflict, of awareness, and awareness is already control. You start connecting what you dismissed. Moments you called random weren't. They followed rhythm, just not yours. You remember who always arrived late when you were present. Watch, spoke confidently. Until you entered, who needed agreement. Only from you. These weren't habits, they were signals. You ignored them because you were busy surviving. Now you're watching. You replay scenes with new eyes. The same jokes used to disarm you. The same questions asked twice. The same concern that required access. They didn't doubt you loudly. They doubted you structurally. By limiting information, by rerouting decisions, by smiling while adjusting outcomes. You see it now. They positioned themselves between you and control, not as enemies, as managers. That's what stings. They never tried to defeat you. They tried to contain you. You notice the pattern. In interruptions, who finishes your sentences? Before you do, who reframes your ideas as group property? Who nods? Only after checking reactions. You weren't imagining it. You were being edited in real time. They tracked your mood, not for care, for prediction. They learned what made you hesitate, what made you explain, what made you see. On-premise, you gave them data. They built leverage, but patterns age, and yours did. Now the repetition feels obvious, predictable, almost lazy. They keep using old tactics, assuming you're still that version. They underestimate how awareness sharpens. You don't confront, you catalog. Who needs reassurance when you're silent? Who rushes to fill gaps? Who panics when you don't respond? Patterns accelerate under pressure, and pressure is growing. They sense distance, but misread cause. They think you're distracted, tired, unmotivated. They don't realize you're no longer participating. You're observing from outside. Their loop, the pattern you ignored, was dependency. They needed you stable, predictable, accessible. Now you're none of those, and the system they built around you starts to wobble. They try to restore familiarity. Old jokes, old roles. You don't step back in. That's when it clicks. For them and for you. This wasn't chaos. It was design, and design can be dismantled. Once seen, it can't. Hide again. You don't feel angry. You feel precise. Patterns don't scare you anymore. They expose, and exposure is the beginning, not of revenge, of control. You notice it in their urgency. They move faster than necessary. Questions stack on top of questions, not curiosity, containment. Information starts slipping from places that used to be sealed. They reveal concerns without being asked. You hear strategy disguised as advice. They say it's for your benefit, but timing betrays them. They reach out more often now, checking alignment, checking access. You don't resist, you delay, and delay creates pressure. Under pressure, structures reveal cracks. They overshare, trying to guide. They contradict themselves, trying to recover. You realize they're reacting to absence. Your non-participation creates instability. They depended on your responses, on your availability, on your predictability. Now they talk to fill space, and in doing so, they expose motive. They ask what you're thinking, not because they care, because they can't track it. You see the leak in their tone, less authority, more negotiation. They reference rules selectively. They appeal to history, to loyalty, to risk. They frame control as protection. You recognize the move. When power weakens, it pretends to help. They reveal what they fear losing: influence, position, relevance. They hint at consequences without committing. They test reactions lightly. You give none. The leak widens. They mention names that shouldn't matter. They share concerns that aren't yours. They disclose pressures from above. They're not confessing. They're compensating, trying to pull you back into the structure. You stay just outside. That's when you see it. They don't know how to operate without your compliance. Your silence creates a vacuum, and vacuums pull truth forward. They begin to negotiate reality, to reshape narratives before you speak, but it's too late. You already see where the system depends on you. The leak isn't weakness, it's resilience. They need you, engaged, manageable, and now they can't tell. Whether you're disengaged or preparing, that uncertainty does more damage than any confrontation. You don't expose them. You let them expose themselves, because once control starts leaking, it never stops. It only accelerates. Something rewires, quietly, not outside, inside. You stop rehearsing responses, stop predicting their expectations. Your thoughts no longer orbit them. That's the shift. You don't feel lighter, you feel calibrated. Your reactions slow down, not from hesitation, from choice. They provoke, you don't bite. They test, you don't adjust. This confuses them. They relied on your reflexes, on your need to be understood. You withdraw that need, and with it, their leverage. You begin editing yourself, for yourself. What matters, what doesn't, what deserves energy, what drains it. You stop explaining complexity. Let them misunderstand. Misinterpretation becomes a filter. Only the perceptive keep up, the rest fall behind. You notice your posture change, not taller, stillness, reads as confidence. They sense it. Try to pull you back into old dynamics, old roles, old narratives. You don't resist, you don't comply, you outgrow. That's what they don't expect. They prepared for rebellion. They prepared for surrender. They didn't prepare for indifference. Your identity no longer negotiates. You don't need their validation or their fear. You realize how much energy you used managing perception. You don't. You let actions land where they land. You accept being misread, because clarity no longer requires agreement. This internal shift is irreversible. Once you stop performing, you can't go back. They feel it as distance, as loss of access. They ask, what changed? You don't answer. Not out of secrecy, out of irrelevance. The change wasn't a decision. It was accumulation, moment after moment, of observation, of restraint, of seeing without reacting. Your inner world stops leaking outward. They can't map anymore. That's when you become dangerous, not because you attack, because you don't signal. They don't know. What matters to you and power can't operate. Without that knowledge, this recode doesn't announce itself. It stabilizes. And once stabilized, everything around you has to adapt, including them, whether they like it or not. You feel it in timing, decisions slow until you're present, not because you lead, because you anchor. They wait without admitting it. Your absence creates delay. Your presence creates alignment. You don't claim authority. It arrives. They start phrasing. Instead of instructing, they suggest. Instead of decide, language softens around you. You notice who checks reactions, who seeks confirmation from your stillness. Power doesn't move loudly, it reorients. They over-explain to secure agreement. You offer none, and that absence does the work. You no longer chase outcomes. Outcomes adjust. They circle your position, trying to read limits. You don't define them. They say, SE. They can't move forward without factoring you. That's migration. Control leaving, old hands, finding new center. They hesitate before acting because hesitation used to be yours. Now it's theirs. You don't rush to occupy space. You let it form, and in that space, authority settles. Not because you demand, because you don't. They adapt reluctantly, one choice at a time. By the time they notice where control sits, it's already too late. It starts with speed. They move faster than logic. Messages pile up. Decisions overlap. They act busy to hide panic. You see it in inconsistency. Rules tighten, then loosen. Standards shift, mid-sentence. They invoke authority. Suddenly, as if volume creates certainty, they reference structure they once ignored, all signals of fear. They don't fear you, they fear loss, loss of position, loss of relevance, loss of the version of you they could manage. They overcorrect. They schedule unnecessary meetings. They demand updates that don't matter. They ask for clarity. Thank you. They want reassurance that control still answers to them. You give none. Your calm amplifies their instability. They mistake silence for strategy, for plotting. That thought unsettles them. They watch your every move, trying to detect intent. You offer neutrality, and neutrality becomes threat. They begin to contradict each other. One promises freedom, another enforces limits. They reveal fractures within their side. Fear accelerates mistakes. They speak without coordination. They pressure you to commit, because commitment creates boundaries. Boundaries create leverage. You stay undefined. That undefined space terrifies them. They try to provoke reaction, a challenge, a compliment. Anything to trigger. The old you don't respond. And that absence confirms their fear. They realize they're no longer reacting to you. They're reacting to themselves. And fear feeds on that loop. By now, they know something irreversible has happened. They just don't know how far it goes. And not knowing is the worst part. You don't escalate. You settle into center. They expect an ending. You deny spectacle. Control doesn't arrive. It remains. You stand where movement hesitates. They adjust behavior without instruction. Language softens, timing aligns. You never claim authority. You become reference. They check themselves before acting. That's dominance. You don't correct mistakes. You let them compound. They seek resolution. You stay open positions, absorb pressure. They begin complying without request, carefully, preemptively. You watch routines change, debates shorten. Around you, decisions slow until you refactored. They don't know why. Only that resistance fails. You don't threaten, you don't reassure, you remain. They test once more, lightly. You don't react. The test collapses. After that, they stop trying. Control settles into new gravity. They call it alignment. They call it order. They won't call it fear, but it is fear of misstep, fear of exclusion, fear of losing AC. Cess to your stillness. You don't dominate through force. You dominate through position, unannounced, unchallenged. Control doesn't return. It stays with you.